listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome to Second Wind, the podcast that was created especially for you. I am Joyce Buford, and I am the creator of this podcast because in my transition, I couldn't find anything that I wanted that supported me through my transition. We as women go through a lot of transitions. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's health, maybe it's a job. Any number of things can change our lives in a matter of moments. So it's my commitment to you to bring women and other speakers, I bring some men, but I'm partial to women because we've traveled the journey. And so I bring you the best. These guests that I have absolutely are top of the line in that they have walked this path, they know what is needed, and they are willing to share it with you. Part of success on any journey is being connected and being supported. So let's get started. This is not any program that you really want to miss because there's so much. And I love what I read on her website. She wants people to live long and live strong. What a powerful statement. Everybody wants that. And so I am delighted to begin this interview today because it's right down my alley, ladies. And I think a lot of you are going to relate. Seema Bonney, MD, is the founder and medical director of Anti-Aging and Longevity Center of Philadelphia. She is dual board certified in both anti-aging and regenerative, am I saying that right? Medicine and emergency medicine, and has completed a fellowship in regenerative medicine. Dr. Bonney is a holistic doctor who is passionate about changing the way medicine is practiced. Her emphasis at her practice is based on prevention and wellness and diagnosis, treatment of root causes of common symptoms such as weight gain, low energy, hormonal imbalance, insomnia, and anxiety. I know there's a couple for each one of us out there listening. Dr. Bonney earned her undergraduate and MD degree through the prestigious 6-year accelerated medical program at Jefferson Medical College in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State University. Welcome, Dr. Bonney, change your name there.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be, I am so excited with the information you're bringing us today because, you know, we all age, whether we want to or not, and there's some surprises that go along with aging that we just never thought we'd be here.
Right.
But the message that you bring is that it's never too late to begin reshaping our lives so that longevity is a possibility.
Absolutely. And then living with vitality as well. So it's not just about a number, but living, being able to do all the things that you want to as you get older.
Yeah. Well, you were kind of on one medical path, and then it sounded like you had a moment. I call them defining moments that we all have. We have multiple, but you had a moment where you decided you wanted to replay your life or change it a bit.
Well, that's really interesting. Actually, I had a pretty major medical issue happen to me where I was, in the hospital getting blood thinners for weeks because of blood clots that I had in my lungs. Now, I have no medical reason to have had blood clots. I have had no medical history, period, end of story until that point. But it basically in trying to figure out how I go about not having that happen again, because the answer to, hey, how do I make sure this doesn't happen again, to a world famous hematologist was, well, I don't know, but if it happens again, we'll put you in a blood thinner. And I'm like, well, what if it happens again? What if I end up with a clot to my brain and end up with a stroke? So they're like, oh, so even though we do amazing things in modern medicine, we're not really good at preventing a lot of conditions. We're really good at treating them once they've happened. The problem with that is it's not the best approach. It's like the equivalent of, do you take your car to the mechanic when it's like the engine's on fire? You don't, right? Or your HVAC is smoking. It's pretty much pretty late in the game, but somehow our convention with the body is that, we don't go to the doctor unless we're sick. Because unfortunately, a lot of us aren't, there to keep people healthy. We're there just to, give you a medicine or something, if and when you get sick. So, it's in that journey of trying to figure out how to make sure I don't have that happen to me again, that I actually discovered that there's like this field of functional medicine. You can call it functional medicine. You can call it preventative medicine, lifestyle medicine. It's all about doing things to make sure you don't develop disease down the road. And that's what I was interested in. So they don't teach you in medical school that, you can specialize in this or even do it, right? In medical school, it's all about, hey, there's a disease, identify it, and then this is the treatment for it, right? So, I kind of stumbled upon this, to be honest with you, and then thought, wow, because over the years of emergency medicine, I was already realizing that most of what came into an ER wasn't actually acute. It was actually all chronic stuff, not all of it, but almost most of it, to be honest with you. Hypertension, high sugars, belly issues, constipation, anxiety, all kinds of things you see in the ER that really should be, dealt with kind of at a primary care type of level. And then it became abundantly clear that, in the 8 minutes somebody has to deal with their patient, like it's about like a lot of prescriptions being written. You really can't do the deep dive into what they're eating, how they're exercising, what their stressors are. And all of these things sound so, like that's like not really medicine. I mean, I'll tell you what, just in full disclosure, my blood clots were completely a result of my going into night shifts a couple years prior, after which 3 hours of sleep, I stopped exercising, which I had done for about 20 some years prior to that. I stopped eating the same things I used to, because when you're really tired, you reach for sugars and you reach for carbs and you reach for foods that like make you think they'll be, give you quick energy, and also make you think that will make you happy, but they actually don't, So all this stuff changed in my lifestyle, actually. And then, over time, I realized like I was having weird hormonal symptoms that I didn't really understand. It all really became very clear when I went into functional medicine. So interesting that like pivotal moment of like me getting really sick kind of led to essentially a change in careers. And I'm like so excited about keeping people healthy. There's really, it's like, you don't feel like you're like in ER. It's like I went into it to save lives, right? But I actually truly now feel like that's what I'm doing, in a very different way. You know what I mean? It's maybe not running codes, but, helping people who are in like, people who are living, who have children, who are working, who want to, wake up with more energy and eat better and exercise better and, do all these things that are going to help them live better. I really feel like it is saving lives, just in a different way earlier.
Well, growing up, I'm an offender. I'm just going to get that out in the open. I am a perfect client for you that needs to be encouraged, or at least think more about this, Joyce. But it's sort of like I just didn't. I don't have a good excuse. Some choose exercise, some don't. And so how do you motivate somebody that hasn't had this in their daily routine? I live in a neighborhood where a lot of people walk. And, but have I gotten out there and walked? No, but I have a new puppy. So maybe I'm going to start walking for that puppy, reason. But it's really hard to motivate somebody other than say, if you don't, and I notice it now because of my age, I notice I need to do certain things. So how do you in your program, when you get a client do you call us clients? Patient,
I kind of interchange between clients and patients. So
patient, yeah.
either, yeah.
So
I
how
haven't
do
been able to
you
decide myself either.
oh good, we can vacillate. So how do you encourage somebody to take on responsibility for improving life?
So there's something to be said for being able to motivate patients. I would say most of our patients, are motivated. And to be honest with you, we all know what we should be doing. We should be sleeping better, eating better. We should all be exercising. We should be taking certain, micronutrients and vitamins. But the question is, how do you motivate people, right? And, I've done a lot of reading about this. A lot of times what you want to do is kind of help people come to, their own conclusions about what does happen or doesn't happen, if they do or don't do those things, right? And the other part of our practice that's like an integral part of our practice is our health and nutrition coach, to be honest with you. We have to keep people motivated. And the biggest thing is, you talked about your puppy. If you went and did like a little walk, 5 houses down and 5 houses back, guess what? You're getting more steps. You're probably getting more sun. Presumably you're doing it in the daytime.
Yes.
You're helping avoid seasonal affective issues. You're getting some vitamin D. These small steps in doing the right, going in the right direction every day over time, like these incremental changes, cause massively good results, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's motivation, sometimes it's keeping people, basically saying, are you going to do this? Like, I'm going to check in with you if you do this. I mean, there's times that certain weeks, whatever's going on, like maybe I can't get to the gym as much. And then maybe you kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. And then I have friends I reach out to, like, hey, can you make sure, like, will you go to the gym if I go to the gym? Like, maybe you'll text me or whatever it is, keep yourself motivated and keep yourself like accountable is the word that, I'm really thinking of. So if you had like a friend you met every morning to take a walk with, you'd be there because you're like, oh, she's waiting for me. Right. So maybe there's a neighbor who you see taking walks saying, hey, maybe I'll join you for a walk. The puppy is great. I've actually heard another patient say that even though it's cold outside, that she's going to continue being outside because of the new puppy. So that's a great positive thing to do. But it's small incremental steps that, move you in the right direction.
Right.
And also all of us need motivation at some point or another,
Are you familiar with Jim Quick? He teaches about the brain, and he has wonderful.
In New York, right?
Yes, he has.
Yep.
He's made a wonderful career out of. He was a child that had brain damage, and he had to develop his own. What he's teaching now, and he helps everybody. Actors with memorizing their lines, everything. It's just amazing to read his story. But he's always got these wonderful things on YouTube about how you motivate yourself. I just saw it this morning, so I'm going to go back and listen to it. So whatever it takes to get you out there. But is it just food that we need to watch, or is it food like yoga, walking, that really starts changing the weight loss for sure, and the low energy level?
Joyce, all of it, right? It's like a multifactorial picture, right? Say you're exercising and eating perfectly, but your stress management isn't under control. It sounds so frivolous. We always say things like stress will kill you, but the truth is it absolutely will kill you. So you could do all of these things right, but not have your cortisol under control, right? And it's super inflammatory. So really, I think you start somewhere, and then this is why I think it's, really kind of helpful to have a personalized program of, well, these are the different things, but let's start with this thing. But we know these other things we're going to address too, or maybe we could do some little things in these other areas to kind of get you going on the right path, And then the difference, with like what we do with functional medicine is like we're rechecking numbers so that not only is the patient feeling better, you should be able to show them, like, for example, like your insulin resistance is improving. That's going to help energy, future risk of, diabetes. It's going to help weight loss, all of those things. So, it's supported by not only should you feel better, but also your parameters of what is optimal, you should be getting closer to those numbers. So
Right.
older, but better,
Yeah. Right.
But like anything else, you need to like a game plan for it. It's like showing up at a financial planner saying, hey, I'm bankrupt. Like, and can you help me? And it's like, you want to like, you want to kind of, the sooner you start, the better. It's never too late,
Right.
ever,
Can you tell when certain people need to lose weight in certain areas, what type of weight that is? Is that a question?
Yeah, it actually is a good question. So I think, probably what you're thinking of that you've read about is, when people have these cortisol issues, this fight or flight, that cortisol, when you get stressed, it actually over time, and it's unchecked, you actually tend to put on weight in that belly area. And that belly area is actually probably the most dangerous place to gain weight because it leads to something called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is, future risk of heart, cardiovascular disease.
Yes.
And one of the criteria for that is having, a waistline for women over 35 inches and for men over 40. So one of the 5 criteria is simply, what is your waist size? So if you're gaining that belly fat for whatever reason, but often, the cortisol, that's actually directly, correlates with increased risk of cardiovascular disease.
Okay, it also seems that a lot of people have blood pressure issues.
That also, obviously diet can play a big role in that, and also weight. Often people drop, a significant amount of weight. All of a sudden, they no longer have type 2 diabetes. All of a sudden their blood pressures have normalized. Exercise, amazing for lowering blood pressure. Yep. Yeah. Cardiovascular exercise is really pretty tremendous for it. And also, studies have shown us, right? Meditation, mindfulness, those things literally lower your blood pressure. There's even foods out there that lower blood pressure, celery, there's some other, taking magnesium supplements. Sometimes CoQ10 can be helpful if you're low, as far as all blood pressure regulation. So, the medications, while, if your blood pressure is high, that may be part of the picture, but ideally you want to do things that keep your blood pressure low versus, you take a pill and as soon as it wears off, you're right back to where it is, which is still more important than letting it go uncontrolled. But
yeah. So how does one join your program or join your center? Do you do an overall analysis of them first? And then
we do. We start off with a pretty in-depth consultation. It's an hour and a half. It reviews, obviously family history, but it reviews their diet. It reviews, what their stressors are, what their symptoms are, what their, stressors are. All kinds of different things on it. So pretty much lifestyle factors. And then there's the second part is, well, what about your biochemistry, right? And so then we do a deep dive into the biochemistry. We're looking at a lot of different, inflammatory markers, risk factors, obviously lipids, insulin resistance, hormonal imbalance, the thyroid, Hashimoto's, all kinds of things. And then including a micronutrient analysis just to see exactly what you're low in and the different building blocks that help you do the chemical reactions in your body. This is a pretty incredible machine, but we have to put it in the right environment for it to really thrive, right?
One machine does all that?
It does. It's an incredible machine. Unfortunately, the wrong foods and not exercising it and keeping it stressed and not sleeping enough, all of those things cause, or not giving it, the micronutrients and vitamins it needs to function properly is what puts it into imbalance,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And people are born with certain genetic predispositions for things to happen, right? And it's like that nature versus nurture are really a combination. So, the way you treat your body, the way you live your life, cumulative, not one, like it doesn't have to be about one day, right? It's really about the marathon, not the sprint. It really is, what you're doing kind of over longer periods of life, that decide whether or not you turn on genes or don't turn them on. So we have a lot more power than we think.
Right.
And we need to embrace that because, even though it might seem like it's a lot of responsibility, the truth is it's actually really empowering. You don't have to sit and wonder, oh my God, like, could I just I heard the story, this person was completely fine. And the next day they were diagnosed with this. You're doing things to keep yourself healthy. And that, that should make everyone feel good.
Yes. Yeah.
And in control.
In control.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Of your health.
That's what we all want. In control. In a good way.
In a good way. Yeah. In a way that, that makes you feel like, hey, I'm doing all the right things and, power of positive thinking, all of those things. And, I think that there's a lot of truth to that.
Yes. There's somewhere in all of your, now I went to your website, of course, and there's somewhere in there that I love what you used. Functional wellness. Tell us what functional wellness is.
Functional wellness, basically. So, it's about looking at the root cause of symptoms people have, right? So whether there's weight gain or low energy, I'm trying to figure out whether there's, a thyroid issue or a micronutrient issue or a hormonal imbalance. And there's a lot of like a lot of these conditions can cause a lot of the same symptoms. Right. So it's actually really kind of fun and interesting to do these evaluations on patients because, in the hospital setting or whatever medical settings, we're always doing these differential diagnoses. We're like, okay, hypertension, could it be from this, or this? Well, we don't really do that actually with hypertension, but there's other conditions we'll do that with. In my practice, it's not you have hypertension, you get a medicine. It's like, well, what's causing the different symptoms that you're having. So, we do a pretty in-depth evaluation into that. And then we try things and some things work and some things don't. And then we're like basically crossing things off the list. Is your low energy because your ferritin's low? Is your low energy because you have some insulin resistance? Is your low energy because you're lacking CoQ10? So it's kind of fun. It's like a little puzzle.
Yeah.
And the whole end result
trial and error in there.
Right? Has to be some of that. And in fact, I think years ago when I said that to a patient, I said, some of this involves some patience because we're trying different things. We want to see which one of these things could be causing, X, Y, Z. And she said, well, they do call it practice, right? Which is interesting. I said, yeah, they do, right? The practice of medicine, because there is a little bit of trial and error, so little mysteries.
Because we are human and what works on one doesn't always work on another.
Completely. This is why medicine ideally should be personalized,
Yeah. So I'm hearing more about the importance of sleep. Somehow we just don't think that, in college, we kind of got into not sleeping for that test, not realizing if we'd had more sleep, the test results might have been better.
Absolutely.
Just little things like that. And I find with a lot of my friends and just people that work out in businesses, I kind of work from home. So they just don't give sleep the credit it needs.
Yep. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah, right.
Guess what? Yeah. You'll be dead sooner if you don't sleep, right?
Right. Yes. So how do you guide somebody when they say, I just can't sleep? I just can't sleep. I lay down, my eyes pop open.
Right.
How do you guide them through that frustration?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can't sleep, you will feel terrible. You won't eat right, won't exercise right. I know it happened to me. Right.
Yes.
So, one thing is you want to make sure their circadian rhythms are really regular. Right. That means ideally trying to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time. If you're exercising, that's going to help you sleep. And then you look at their sleep hygiene too. A lot of people are like, till the minute they're sleeping, they're watching their Netflix or on their screens, or even if they're reading a book, it's on a Kindle sometimes. So these lights, these blue lights, there's definitely, studies out there that show that they keep you awake and interfere with your sleep cycle. Another one is cortisol. So if you're stressed, and I'm sure you see this a lot, It's especially rampant with this pandemic that we're having, that people's cortisol levels are kind of unchecked and out of control. Right. So if your cortisol at night is too high, we know you're going to have trouble sleeping. I mean, how many people say, I can fall asleep, but then I wake up at 2 and I just start thinking about things. And then they're
Yes.
up for the next enough 2-3 hours, enough that it just kind of screws up their whole day.
Yeah. And then they just get up.
Then you just get up, because what are you going to do?
Yeah. Tell us about cortisol. Tell us what that is.
Cortisol is a hormone made in your body that's like a fight or flight hormone. So, think of the prehistoric caveman, right? A boar is coming at you. Your cortisol goes up. Your senses get sharp. You take your weapon and kill the boar, and then the cortisol goes down. Great. Cortisol served its purpose. It's important. It makes us sharper. When people take tests, their cortisol goes up. There's a lot of positive effects to the cortisol. The problem is when you can't turn the cortisol off, then it causes a lot of inflammation in the body. And those inflammatory, basically causes anxiety. It can cause even like palpable symptoms like, people's heart rates going up. But it really, interferes with other hormones in your body, like the melatonin, and it just keeps you from sleeping properly at night.
Yes. Anxiety seems to be a big one now. Really does. Just look at our world. We're faced every day with stress and struggle, and I think it's really put a lot of us into overactive cortisol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's an epidemic out there. I think, kids you hear about all the time. I have a lot of patients who are really stressed because, they have a few kids and one of them is in high school and super stressed. I've heard this story, I think, very often in the last few days, and it's a shame to have, kids who should be just kind of happy, they don't really, it's almost like, yes, they have problems, but there's bigger problems out there later on in life, potentially, so relatively they're living, what we think of as, pretty comfortable, good lives. And they're super anxious, which is causing anxiety in their parents. But, I think that, anxiety also, can be very well addressed, from a functional standpoint, right? Exercise, the foods you're eating can either make you more anxious or less anxious. Trigger, adrenal fatigue can definitely be worsened by sugar, caffeine, a lot of these like carby foods that turn into sugar. They might give you kind of energy and maybe make you feel better in the short term, but in general, it's like a crash.
Right.
So
no, this is just some local stuff. One way I know that we are a society living under anxiety is that when I moved from Shreveport, Louisiana to Houston, Texas, I was working for IBM at that time, and I was all excited about moving there, but I nearly got killed driving on the interstates getting to my location.
Right.
So I thought, oh my gosh, these people drive so fast. And so now I notice, even in my little country town, 100,000, people drive so fast. It's kind of like that anxiety it's built up in there. They're going so fast. It's a noticeable difference in the city.
Right.
I've spoken to others about it. And do you not see that in your city as well?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just on the anxiety radar right now, checking into all this. It's really a sign, I think, of where we are.
It's like our lives have kind of been turned upside down, right? The kids aren't going to school and people aren't going to their jobs. And, for a while you couldn't go into restaurants and, it's just confusing. I get it. I get that but then you have to counter it. If it's there, then you have to figure out ways or go to somebody to, how do I lower my cortisol? Because like I said, stress will kill you,
Yeah.
It actually has been shown to decrease the telomere length. Telomeres are those little end units on your DNA. The shorter they get, the more you're biologically aging. So you can do tests on patients, like, is their biological age what their DNA is showing us it is? In fact, many years ago, they did a study on women going through a divorce, and they saw that the women who regularly exercised had longer telomeres, meaning less biological aging. So
Yeah.
a lot of that biological aging really has much to do with lifestyle factors. How much you're sleeping, how well you're sleeping, how you're eating, are you exercising in enough, right? In enough, like, are you doing like 150 minutes of moderate physical exercise? And again, you start somewhere, you go up every week or every month, and you get somewhere else, right? But there's goals of where to get, which is, kind of like the optimal places too. So, but lifestyle factors are huge for that.
Well, in your description, I explained you do anti-aging and regenerative medicine. Is there a difference there in that description? What is
Anti-aging.
one different than the
Well, I think things that regenerate cells, right?
or
I
anti-aging?
think are anti-aging. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think kind of one leads to the other.
Yeah.
A lot of people think of anti-aging as like skin related, right? But, obviously what we do is medical anti-aging.
Yeah.
And
Right.
even though you're not turning people younger, but I can tell you, I mean, I think the effects, that this kind of, medicine treatment have on people, you do feel younger, you have more energy, you feel like, maybe you did when you were younger. So in a lot of ways, like, it's slowing down aging really, but your symptoms symptoms, the side effects are really like you feel younger.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm 28.
Are there many doctors like yourself that are going into this part of medicine?
I mean, I think there's more and more that get what we're doing traditionally isn't helping. If you look at all the stats on, what we're doing, like people are just sicker, right? Despite more and more money being thrown like at the health system. So I think there's more awareness of that. But I'll be honest with you, I think, patients are probably more aware than like, the medical industry as a whole. I think that there's so many resources out there people are looking at, and they realize they should be, taking certain supplements, and, there's wellness and there's disease. And I think that, as traditional doctors, we're not so good at, at knowing wellness unless you really go out of your way to learn what exactly it is and how you help patients with that. I mean, I look as partners, for me, as like, I look at acupuncturists and massage therapists, sometimes chiropractic, as all, modalities of helping people. Whereas, traditionally in medicine, we don't look at others. We look at, essentially medications and, sometimes surgery as being like the answer, or saying, I don't know, that's just how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see the benefit in coming to your facility would be helpful in the focusing your supplements to give what your body needs. I have Alzheimer's in my family, and so I went to see Dr. Amons.
Right.
And he gave me some supplements. And then I have some others that I do. I can see the great benefit in going to one facility and getting the supplements that you need.
I mean, the supplement, there is so many that you can take. We're actually pretty careful to streamline them. I can't tell you how many patients come in with bags of supplements, and a lot of times even very like intelligent people like are not really sure why they're taking it. And it'll be like, well, I'm taking this milk thistle because the guy at GNC told me. And the fact is, like, nobody's telling people what they need to take. But this isn't like, you don't have to guess, right? So like the technology's out there. Unfortunately, what should be part of like a yearly type of, optimizing health physical, which is really what an annual should be. Should tell you, hey, you know what, you're low in this, and this. So maybe you could have more Brazil nuts and get that selenium, because otherwise, it's going to cause issues. It's an antioxidant. It helps to convert your T4 into T3, and it does this and that. But, right now it's like a big guessing game unless patients like go out of their way to kind of, have someone help them figure out what exactly they're low in.
Can you run these tests on individuals that do not physically come into your facility?
Yes, we can.
You can.
Yeah.
Boy, that's cool. I like that. So you can actually do distancing
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, they would go, how would they contact you?
They could contact us, through our website. We're at www.wellness.doc. It's wellness/doctor, not slash, my goodness, wellness-doctors, plural.com. Or, our office is 484-222-0369. So those are ways to contact us. We can run a micronutrient test. We just need to find kind of a local lab who will draw it for the patient. Here we draw it for our patients who walk in.
Right. Yeah.
It's pretty cool, pretty cool information to have.
Oh, I think it would be really valuable.
Because it's not just about what you're eating, it's also what is your gut absorbing, right?
Yes.
And then also I think the third part of it is what's happening in your body to either, eat up more or less of those micronutrients. We all have different enzymes that work at different levels. So, you'll see people from like husbands and wives who are eating a lot of the similar foods. And just because your genetics are different, you're going to have, different micronutrient analysis. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it really is. I can see there's so much benefit. Don't you want to move to the South?
I mean, I love being in the South. I think the weather's so much more conducive to being outside and exercising, and it's sunnier. Yeah. It's already cold here. It's in the 40s today.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you what it is here. Yeah, definitely. But you could create chains. See, I could see you expanding. I'm on this.
Yeah, we've got some, we're doing some serious business development there.
Oh,
I
good.
just think there's such a need for it through the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic, we've known that people it should be as optimally healthy, but now I think everybody knows they should be as optimally healthy as they can be, because, maybe it's the coronavirus now, God forbid it's something else later, but it's always free radicals in your body that can cause problems, and other, things that are, you just basically need to be hyper vigilant. And that doesn't mean scared and stressed. That means just putting yourself in a good place. So when you're like, okay, if I'm attacked by something, my body is in pretty good shape to take it on and beat it,
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm just really excited about the possibility of so much of this that can be tested in the knowledge you can find to explain why your hands ache and your body swells.
Right.
I mean,
Why there's
that's
inflammation.
great information to have.
It
So
sure
that
would
you're
be.
not only getting a program, walking, eating, sleeping,
Right.
but you're also getting a plan.
Right. A longevity plan, right? Like how you're going to live long and how you're going to have full vitality doing it. I mean, for me, it's like not so much a number the way Dave Asprey wants to live till he's 180, right?
Oh, no.
180, as long as you're living like this till 180, sure, right? But it's really about like traveling, now that we can again, or one day we'll be able to more fully, but people like running after their grandchildren and like having a quality of life where playing tennis or golf or doing all the things that they want to do. I mean, it's, gotta plan for that and gotta prepare ahead of time.
Yes. How do you address, or do you address in your clinics the issue of the brain? I know if we eat better, then that's also going to work for the brain. If we sleep, that's going to work for the brain.
Right.
But is there any addressing that you do to the actual brain function, or do you rely on another facility for that?
So, we don't do things like PET scans the way Dr. Amons does, right? But there is, as far as, making sure that patients have like the right micronutrients. I mean, hormones are really important for brain function as well. It's like if
Yes.
there's like an imbalance there. Um, basic stuff like, are you sleeping? Because at night is when your brain, it's like the night shift that your brain clears out these proteins. I don't know if you've read about that with the Alzheimer's, but those like tangles, they get cleared out at night. And so if you're not sleeping at night, your body isn't doing like basic things that it should be to get rid of,
Yes.
these unnecessary things. So all of that is really vital. Of course, eating for, good cognition versus eating some of the things that like make us slower and more lethargic and not as sharp. So, I mean, it's a lot of the same things that were insulin resistance, thyroid function. Both of those things cause, you not to feel as sharp as you should, So, I mean, I just think there's an incredible amount of, work we can do with just those like lifestyle factors and, the biochemistry.
Well, one of the big things that I was reading something, I guess, because I'm always very interested in keeping healthy, was to just simply throw the sugar away. Just throw it away because it's such a bad thing for us.
Yeah.
And it's so,
Poison.
it is from age 2, you get
Mhm.
sugar as a reward.
I know.
And
I
it's
know.
just crazy.
I know. It's like, if you're good, I'll give you a cookie, and you go to a birthday party and you get cake. So in your mind, it's like I see my kids, like, I've been so careful with them. And I think a couple of years ago, I noticed my 12-year-old's eyes he was like, he's like, are there cookies? And the eyes, and I literally said out loud, I said, oh my God, do you have a sugar addiction? And I'm like, but it's like we're trained from early on. And like, for a lot of, you see people in their 50s and 60s, and they're like, I just, yeah,
It's like the party
it's
thing.
because it's all up here. It's like,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of connected to rewards and happy and good, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Dessert, you know?
And that's their reward from coming to a party
Yeah.
that's like at a friend's house.
Yeah.
That's the reward, is their cookie. They're still getting that reward from
Yep.
age 2.
I
It's
know.
just amazing.
Like, why are we training? Like, if we could train them to be like, ooh, carrots, it sounds so silly, but I think, it's a matter of molding and how we think about it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It
the
really,
sugar, I think if you can do little things like try to reduce like any added like sugars, and it doesn't have to be like you can just go straight to your coffee and like have no sugar, but maybe put a little bit less in, maybe try not
or
to
the
add like sugars to
substitutes.
things. What?
Some of the substitutes are pretty good,
Yeah.
actually. I have
Stevia
gluten as
especially.
well. So gluten free is what I do with my hands,
Uh-huh.
aching in my hands. So they're getting better. In the north, much better than in Texas. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Maybe if you're in the city, it's a little better. But we're getting there, but we're slow. And I know there are other parts of the South that, I mean, they wouldn't have anything to eat if they didn't have gluten. So,
Mhm.
it's really an issue.
Gluten, dairy, and sugar really can be very inflammatory. I'm not saying all three for all people, but definitely gluten is probably not good for most people.
Really?
Sugar is not good for any of us. We know that. It actually, let's talk about the immune system. It actually, in studies, have been shown to paralyze your white blood cells for a period of time after ingesting sugar.
Really?
But literally, it shuts your immune system. Like it doesn't, it's incredible the things sugar does. It causes insulin resistance, makes you tired, makes you gain weight, makes you not sleep as well. It really is poison. And it's, we've all been ingrained from a really early age that it's, somehow, something
Does
that
does
a
that
positive.
apply to the substitute, like the stevia?
I think stevia is actually fine, but some of the other, like for example, people think of diet soda as being fine and soda isn't. But a lot of times some of these like artificial sugars can actually cause same sort of insulin spikes that sugar can.
Oh, really?
And then they have all kinds of chemicals in them too that are not good for us.
What about honey?
I think honey is actually pretty good. get some organic honey. It's a lot more natural. It's a good sweetener.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is just conditioning. If you did a fast and said, you know what, I'm going to take like a week or 2 weeks or a month and not have sugars, when you come back to it, you're going to be like, oh, this is too sugary. It's all a matter of conditioning. I think there's just so much sugar, in things like, for example, these beverages, like a Gatorade bottle. Like,
Yes.
if you get used to that, or if you get used to not having that and you have it, you're like, this is disgusting. It's like a syrup. So much of it is conditioning our brains, as to like, I try to tell my kids, I hope someday it kicks in. Hey, this is like a well-oiled machine, but are you going to put mud in as the gas, or are you going to put like 98 octane given the choice? Right.
Yes.
And so, I don't think it's quite clicked in, but as a mom, like you just hope that, one day they're 12, 11, and 7, but like one day that they're like, mom said, and she was right. Just kind of like plant the seed at least.
Yeah. Very
I
good.
bought the Tom Brady book for my son, but I don't think he's really read it. It's interesting. He's like, I'm such an athlete. And I'm like, well, if you want to be a great athlete, then you got to obviously treat your body like amazingly well. But
Right.
that connection, like, is not standard with our athletes. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my God, I got to treat my body really well. I mean, some of them get it, as we know. But I think that, anyway, you plant the seed and you hope they figure it out one day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what does the future, okay. So if people wanted to get to you, because we're getting close to the end of the hour, then they would go to your website is www.wellness-doctors.com.
It's actually wellness dash.
Oh, it's a dash. Okay. Sorry.
Wellness-doctors.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you're on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn and Instagram. Yep. And they can probably find all of those from your website, can't they?
They're all on our website, and a lot of it's under my name, Seema Bonney, MD. Yep.
Yeah.
We have lots of cool, helpful tips, both on LinkedIn as well as our Instagram, Facebook. And, it's actually really cool when we get messages from people we don't even know saying, hey, you know what, I felt really inspired. And I just want you to know I've been doing things. And I'm like, this is so awesome to be able to effect change in people. There's nothing like no bigger compliment than that. So
to take the time to let you know.
I like literally every time I screenshot and send it to my office, I'm like, look at this. This is so cool.
I get it.
But it feels good. It feels like this is our point. This is why we're in medicine, to help people.
Yeah. You also have on your website a blog.
Yep.
And you talked about, I like this, tips of optimizing health over the holidays. That's very much needed now as we enter the holiday season. And then fog brain. We all have fog brain at some time.
Yep.
And great article. And then adrenal fatigue. So these are just the 3 that were there on the page, but you have a next. So how often do you put those up? Do you know, is it ever?
We write a lot of articles, believe it or not, but we're just kind of talking about, which is interesting. We're talking about that this morning, about how we need to post more of what we're writing as blogs on our website. So we'll start to be,
website. It is always growing, always changing our websites, right?
Yep.
Yes. So I like to end with 2 questions.
Okay.
So may I ask you these questions?
Sure.
The most powerful decision you made toward your success?
That's a good question. I actually think the fact that I shifted gears in medicine really was not only I think personally helpful, but obviously professionally helpful as well. But I want you to know that, in order for me to have some power when I speak to patients about what they should be doing, I have to be authentic and do it myself as well. Right. So part of actually, when I first went into this field, I said, I'm going into this field so I keep myself healthy. right? Because I know what I should be doing. I'm learning all these things and, telling patients like what they need to be doing, or, and then I have to do these things too. And I really feel like, this is not only giving my patients longevity, but like, if you see me and how I function, like I'm pretty intentional about a lot of things. Like I make sure my workouts at the beginning of the week are in my calendar, because it's super important to talk to you. My patients are super important. There's kids things, but that doesn't mean because the one thing that's not on my calendar is like working out, guess what? It just falls off, So it kind of keeps it top of mind, and then, as far as like giving our patients, a lot of support as well. I mean, sometimes, we need that to ourselves, me and my health coach. But that, I think, just shifting gears as far as being, going from emergency medicine into functional medicine, really, I think is definitely increased my longevity, no doubt.
Right.
I feel younger. I feel better. I feel like I'm in my 20s. I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Second question. What is success for you?
Success for me would be, so that's a good question, right? I'm very type A. I feel like there's nothing I can't accomplish, which, can be a little cortisol raising, right? So like, say you wake up in the middle of the night and you're thinking, oh, I should do this. I could do that. I could do that. I mean, these are the kinds of things that sometimes, sometimes I have to make sure I can't reach for my phone and start emailing ideas or texting people. Sometimes I'm not so
You
good
don't
about
keep
that
it next to the bed.
that's actually a good point. Keeping the phone further away is good for a number of reasons. One, there's like none of that electromagnetic stuff, but B, it makes it harder because you're not going to get up out of bed to possibly likely go across the room. But sometimes when it is near me, yeah, I will try to reach for it. But success, right? So I think that, I have certain goals in mind, but I just really want to help as many people as we can. I think people realize that there's a better way to do things than to get sick. I think that a lot of our, focus and challenge here, I don't think we're alone in Philadelphia, is that, to tell people, hey, you don't have to just like have bad things happen to you medically. Like there's things you can do, because a lot of times people are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because it does. But until it's introduced, they really, have absolutely, no idea that it's like something that's available to them. So I think that success would mean having a heck of a lot more people like understand that there are resources and people who can, help guide them with very personalized medical, help to like promote longevity.
Wonderful. Well, I want you to know this has been a very good hour for
Thank
me.
you. For me too.
And I know it's been a very good hour for my listeners. So I thank you very much for agreeing to come on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Now, what I want to say to my audience is you have an opportunity like every week. You have the awesome ability to reach out to your community and encourage them to listen to this message. I learned a lot today, and I bet you did too, because sometimes, have you ever had that friend that would walk up and say, I just can't find my keys anymore. I just never go sleep through the night. I'm just so tired. That's the woman you need to share this podcast with, because there's lots of good information here. I had no idea you could have a test that could help you with so many of knowing your body. That is big. And I really want you to share that. So I just ask that you do that. Help a friend. Go to the website, search it out, find out what's there that Dr. Bonney can offer you or your friend. So, as I will say, that's your only homework assignment, actually. Spread the news. And I hope you will be back next week and we will learn more about the world and meet other people changing the world. So thank you for being here today. It's always my pleasure to know that you're out there listening. Have a great day.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.